Why do universities across the country create competitive gaming leagues along with an esports curriculum? And how do they do it? Guest moderator Marc Williams of Florida Memorial University is joined by SUNY Cortland's Lindsey Darvin, Becker College's Alan Ritacco, and Collegiate Star League's Wim Stocks to tell you why and how.
I have three distinguished guests in front of us today. Three of them are good friends of mine, and I'm so excited to share this conversation with everyone. And before we get started, let's talk a little bit about the role of collegiate sports, esports right now. It's a pretty interesting landscape. So let's start off with you, Dr. Allen. 3 years ago, you started this program at Becker. What drove you to really think about getting involved in the space? What was it that made you want to do it?
It's one of those things that, esports isn't the thing that gets us there. It's the thing that brings us to the next generation, right? So we created a video gaming ecosystem that now is about management of the ecosystem itself. So that's finance, distribution, IT, marketing, distribution of the actual things through popping up of things like Twitch, which is now 10 plus years old, but in the ecosystem in terms of digital technology. And I'll wrap it up quickly. We look at this, or I look at this as a pre-inflection point. We've seen this in our careers, most of us have, where we had a pre-inflection point for the internet up to about 2001, a pre-inflection of apps until about 2011. Pre-inflection of crypto, which we're right at that point. This is a pre-inflection point of esports. It's a burgeoning industry. It's estimated at $2 billion. We've estimated it. William Colvis is one of the professors. He's estimated an upper ceiling in a recent paper he published at about $70 million. Its market probably is about 30 to 50 million, but there's a tremendous growth of ladder here. That's why we looked at it. We have an opportunity to be able to have students come through our program and starting at the undergraduate, build them into it, not just around playing games, but distribution in the whole ecosystem.
You mentioned something interesting. You mentioned about the $2 billion industry. The people don't understand that the video game industry itself is estimated about 170 billion, and by 2025, $200 billion. And right now, I think the esports represents maybe 6-7%. Because if this was baseball, this would be inning number one. This is just the beginning. And so, and this question is to both you and Wim, and then we'll go to Dr. Darvin. How the landscape of esports changed since you started the Becker College's program, and then I'll also issue that same question to Wim as far as the Collegiate Star League, how you got it started, and how did you see it emerge, and where it's at now?
The biggest changes that we've seen are, 4 years ago, there was no such thing as a LAN center specifically associated with esports. We have one now that's 15 miles from us at Patriots Place that our good friends, Murphy and William Colvis and others who have partnered to build that up. You're seeing these pop up all throughout the United States. Those there are meeting locations. You're seeing a industry that's from 3 or 4 years ago that was built grassrooty. Now you're seeing people like Wim who have taken attention, who are building this up from the business aspect. This is the rising water raises all boats that we always talk about. Wim is the captain of the boat, and we're taking notice of where those changes are.
We started this whole thing 10 years ago pretty simply. We just wanted, we follow the competitive college model. What do you want to do? You want to prove that your school is better than the school down the street, and we did it around StarCraft 2. And StarCraft, that name's Collegiate Star League, the star from Collegiate Star League actually is coming from, thankfully Blizzard's never come to us for royalty requests, but that is the origin and the genesis of Collegiate Star League. And as we built this, the United States, as I think everybody is aware, from a collegiate sports perspective, is very unique in the world. There aren't a lot of in fact there are no frankly, no traditional sports ecosystems built out to the same degree that there are at the college level in the United States. And a simple mirror for us to build our presence and build the notion of schools competing against one another in the structure of leagues and events and conferences. So that was it wasn't rocket science to get there, but it has been astounding, the growth that we've been 30-40% growth year over year the last 4 years. And now as we're still not saturated, we're still not at a point where all schools are involved, and we certainly are encouraging more schools to get involved. But as we've built our presence, and as schools have needed help to get more involved, more engrossed, and more invested in esports, that's been a big pivot for us. This particular year, intercollegiate is always going to be important. That's our hallmark. That's our signature. But now, how to help schools embrace esports, how to understand it, how to use it for their benefit, as exactly what Alan described. Now we're helping schools design curriculum. Now we're helping schools understand how to use esports and gaming to recruit students. We are helping events and invitationals. Dr. Marc, we're going to have a big one next weekend.
One of the things that I found fascinating about the Collegiate Star League, when we met 2 years ago at Overwatch Championships, you had close to maybe 1,700 schools or so. And I asked you, I said, do you have any HBCUs? And you were like, what is an HBCU? And it wasn't a disrespectful answer. You just didn't know what it was. And we explained to you about, hey, the Collegiate Star League, there's 102 HBCUs, and there's various different conferences, the MEAC, the SWAC, the CIAA, and SIAC conferences. Those are the governing conferences for some of these HBCUs. Two of the conferences are Division I schools, the other Division II schools. And then there's schools like Florida Memorial, who's in the NAIA conference. And so obviously this is the new learning for Collegiate Star League. And one of the things that was missing too, that you just added this year, was a women's division for women. And so Dr. Darvin and I met a few years ago when she was pursuing her doctorate at University of Florida. And one of the things that she's known for, and what she studies, is inclusion and diversity and equity. And we talked about the role of women in the collegiate, and not just in playing video games, but in general, what is the role of women? And so I'm going to talk to Dr. Darvin after listening to some of this and reading and researching. We dub him Dr. Win Stocks today, brother Stocks today, right? So and Alan refers him as the grand poobah of esports, which he is. And so now that WIM and the Collegiate Star League has now incorporated the vision for women, Dr. Darvin, how do you see women playing a role in esports, not just playing the game, but in academia, but also in society? How do we bridge the gap and get them more inclusive, make it more inclusive for women to want to play and be a part of the culture?
So here comes the diversity and inclusion scholar, right? To like throw some water on the fire, right? To slow us down a little bit, because that really is sort of the point of the research that I do, right? So I started researching diversity, inclusion, and equity in traditional sports spaces. And what ended up happening is I saw that this esport space was really growing. As we've all mentioned here, the numbers are undeniable. And I recognized that there were a lack of women at the highest levels in this area. And so through some of the research that I've done and some of the pro women gamers that I've spoken to, it is a matter of sort of taking a step back a little bit as well in these environments and saying, is it inclusive enough? What is the culture like? Is it hostile towards women? Because we have to remember, with traditional sport, we never had a chance to take a step back. We never had a chance to sort of start something that was inclusive for all people. It just started as a man's space, and we kind of just brought women and girls into it with Title IX. But we never had a chance to really start something that was inclusive for all. And I see this as a great opportunity to do that in esport, especially at the younger ages. So what I'm noticing and what I keep hearing is it's not going to be something that can be done really on the back end. It's something we have to work on with younger girls, guardians, parents, and a lot of the work that you all are doing will prove to them that girls and women can make a career out of this and can really climb and can get recruited and can go to school for it. So I'm noticing that the big differences here between traditional sport, and non-traditional sport is just that there's no linear path in the esports space. And so because of that, some girls really aren't getting involved. They're even discouraged from being involved. The culture can be a little bit more hostile towards girls and women. So it really is. It's a matter of saying, wait a minute, we have a chance here to really start something that's inclusive, not wait until the problems get too large to solve. And I see it as a really great opportunity for this environment in this space.
We need to do better. And I think the way we do better is a couple different ways. Industry needs to help us here a little bit, in my mind, where the companies who are the video manufacturers need to be putting dollars in at the bottom and at the top just like we see money coming from the top, but we need some of the dollars to be influxed from the high schools and the colleges to help with scholarships, to help with, like Dr. Darvin said, having that conversation at home that, you know, League of Legends is just for boys. No, that's preposterous. So how do we do that? Well, we have programs that are in the high school that they're playing League and they're playing Smash and doing those type of traditional and non-traditional and tabletop, right? Because it's multi-phased here. It's not just about the esports that's on your keyboard. Let's talk about tabletop that then goes into, so there's the analytical, right, version of these esports that we want to, Hearthstone, for example, that we want to make sure that we're having inclusivity. So in my mind, I think that's the approach. And we are doing that, and we have done that. We've done a pretty good job, I believe, but you know, I'm not patting ourselves on the back. We've got a long way to go.
You should pat yourselves on the back because you're one of the best out there. So do that.
I can add to this too, because I think it's important also to understand the culture. And a lot of us understand traditional sport, right? So what I always refer back to is I compare it to pre-Title IX in traditional sport. And as long as we understand that that's the culture, we understand that women and girls really, I hate to say, it's not that they're just not encouraged, they're discouraged to participate. So understanding, I've heard stories of girls saying they had to hide their consoles from their parents, or they asked their parents to purchase them one, then they told them that they couldn't have one, right? So I think understanding the culture helps a lot in shifting what you're talking about. And as long as we have a good sense of that culture, then we can make the right changes.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that really kind of strikes me is thinking about, you know, specifically the female population in colleges. It's grown. It's 60+%, 70% in some colleges. So you've pivoted, right? And now it's on us to make sure that we're catering to that population.
Yeah.
You know, doing that better job means recruitment, coaching, and also, you know, the training. The training is very important to have that going out to the high schools and hitting the 7th and 8th graders. One of the things that we've been very fortunate with on the interactive media side, I'm going to go off just on 1 second for the game design side. We had $1 million grant that we just brought in from ASA that's helping us understand or look at and understand what I like to say is the propensity of 7th and 8th graders in careers. So those are targeted specifically at that young population. Why did we pick that population? Well, Dr. Darvin knows the answer to that, because that's a very important key member or age bracket when students start thinking about where they're going to go or their career paths, or just in general, the cognitive reverie, as I like to say, is thinking about the future. So, you know, we also do a 4-H camp, which is targeted at underprivileged girls. Very near and dear to my heart. I don't need to go into that sappy story, but we bring in 85+ students every year, multi-state, to try to foster them interest in, you know, interactive media, esports, robotics, cybersecurity, the whole STEAM environment. And I think that ties, and again, this is the ecosystem. If we carve off one little piece, I feel like we're missing it. You know, it's that, again, esports isn't the thing, it's the thing that gets us to the thing.
Right.
That's right.
Right. And with that said, you know, Dr. Darvin, you know, you're at SUNY Cortland, and I know how much you follow the industry now. Obviously, you're big in sports. You know, many people don't know this. You were Division III college basketball player, so you understand the culture of sport. And then what I love about sport, the minute that they understand what esports is, they can bring their knowledge and resources to that space. So at your university, are you looking on any level at looking at esports on any level in terms of the academic side of it? And if so, what are some of the things, if you haven't done it yet, that you're going to pursue doing? Because a lot of people now are trying to, and this is going to be a question to Dr. Darvin, but I'm going to open it up to the panel as far as how do you decide where you put your academic programs in esports at your university? What does it look like? So what say you, Dr. Darvin? What are you looking to do? What is SUNY? What are you looking to do there at your school? And then Dr. Allen, talk a little bit about how you went into making a decision, how you did it at Becker. And then Wim, I want you to talk a little bit about the role of varsity esports, club sports in athletic departments versus it being in student affairs or some other department at the university.
Great.
Dr. Darvin?
And I can keep this short because, to be honest, we haven't done a whole lot, unfortunately. We want to. I've come in and I've said, there's the interest is there. Our students have said that they want to have this curriculum. My hesitation has always been, and that's why I'm excited to learn from Dr. Allen and Dr. Wim about what they've done, because my hesitation has always been, I don't want to just throw together a curriculum and not fully understand the ecosystem, as we were talking about, or not fully understand the culture. Because again, we do have that chance right now to start something that can include everyone and be an opportunity for everyone, rather than just throwing something out there and saying, I hope it sticks, right? So we haven't gotten too far. The interest is there. I know there's a club esport team on campus, but we've been looking into how we want to develop something. We were talking earlier, kind of off the record, about certificate programs and things of that nature. So we've talked about some of that and doing that. But I definitely think, in answer to part of your question, I do think it would fit in with sport management. I do think it would be on the sport management department to bring esport in and develop some curriculum off of that. I have heard of some programs that have done it separately. Still, though, mirroring sport management, which is very interesting because you're combining this non-traditional and traditional sport. So I'm excited to hear from the other two panelists on this, because we've been a little hesitant up at Cortland. Partially that's on me, because we want to understand the culture better and the research is getting us there. But I'm eager to learn more about how they've implemented programming and curriculum.
So very quickly, I think the short answer is, I think, business. And the reason why, that business department where sports management resides, everyone knows, I always say, when I first started it anyway, but everyone knows what sports management is. It's taking care of Tom Brady. Now we say boo to that, but in any event, now, what's esports management? Well, it's the same thing. You're taking care of Ninja, right? Or whomever your favorite celebrity is. But when we talk about that ecosystem, the creators, the players, the managers, and the distribution, the center of that, the congruency right in the middle, is business. That's the key core competency, I believe, is very important here, that we don't want to lose sight of. I'm a computer scientist, and I understand that business is the key to all of this. So, when we created our program, we had, a varsity and club for many, many, many years here. We've got about 185 students that participate in club and varsity here at Becker College. Those students come from all different areas, whether it's nursing, veterinary, tech or vet sciences, computer science, interactive media, et cetera, and esports management. We actually don't have that many from esports management who are playing. We have only one person from esports management on our varsity team, which is really interesting because they're business oriented, and that's the key here. They're looking at the future. They're the future Wims of the world, the future William Collises of the world. Those are the people who are carving it up. They're what I call entrepreneurs, because they got to be a good entrepreneur before they become Wim, who's an entrepreneur. And with that, I will pass it over to Dr. Wim Stocks.
I'm so honored to be an honorary doctor in this midst. For everyone's notion, we did this just so that it would be easy and consistent. I get to be a doctor for an hour. That's a cool thing. Our history is very different, and I can't get into this conversation without first referencing, what Robert Morris did, 70 years ago. Think the vision that they had to officially anoint not only an esports program, but an esports team as a varsity team. Nobody the fact that they used to be such a novelty, and now as we march forward 7 years later, it's not a novelty. It's really the direction that most of the programs that are diving in deeply on esports are all about. When we started, again, keep in mind our history has really been the notion of intercollegiate play and gendering and promoting competition between schools. There were hardly any sanctioned programs. These were club teams that got started on college campuses. It might have been just a group of kids getting together and registering to take part in our leagues and our conferences. But over time, it became the attention of the STEM program or the computer science program, or largely the legacy for most of the quote unquote sanctioned programs coming from college came from student life or student affairs. And frankly, our model was always sort of when everybody talks about Collegiate Star League, and say, the NCAA of collegiate esports. And And I'll say, well, that's a pretty good analogy, but frankly, we consider ourselves the anti-NCAA because the anti-NCAA connotes that your support is coming from the athletic department. If anything, 95, 98% of how this business got as big as it did for us it came from outside the athletic department. Now that this notion of the unfortunate side of the pandemic for most companies was that, especially in the collegiate realm and in the traditional sports realm, that so much programming went away. There's no broadcast, there's no live events, and as a result, the colleges who rely on football programs and basketball programs and hockey or baseball programs to support their revenue streams, those went away, and all the sponsorships around those went away. So now the notion of esports as replacement programming for athletic departments is a really important thing. And I'll get to my conclusion here in a minute, but we all know that's where the money is. The athletic departments are where the money is, and the notion of them getting involved now with esports in a sanctioned way, more varsity programs, that's a really good thing. But at the same time, we would say that we'll take a team formed for our collegiate leagues. We'll take a team formed however it wants to come involved, as long as they're officially representing the school, as long as they're holding a full load from a course work perspective, and as long as they are obviously they have to prove that their standing is good with the school, that their grade point average is good with the school, and that's our governance. But we'll take our programming and our schools and our teams however in order to this notion. Alan, you mentioned waters lifting all boats. This is exactly our mantra too. We want as much participation and around the competition as we can garner.
Well, with that said, this is going to conclude this amazing panel. We could talk for days about this topic. Know that the future of esports and collegiate is rising, and there's lots of opportunity, and you have an opportunity to talk to several industry experts here, as you see, Dr. Darvin, Dr. Allen, and Wim Stocks. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity, and we will see you soon the next time when we do this again in the future. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.